look, I think, we knew something was going to happen with the Jets quarterbacks at some point because they were starting to zero in on taking a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. And, Sam Darnold is sort of caught in the crossfire. So, I thought eventually they'd have to trade him, whether it was at the draft or after the draft. I wasn't sure, but they made the early move, which caught us all off guard today.
Are you surprised at what they're getting for this? What does this trade entail?
Well, they're getting a 6th round pick this year and a 2nd and 4th next year. The 2nd rounder is key because when I asked around the league early in the process, that was really what everybody thought the max would be for Sam Darnold. That, they didn't think he was going to get a 1st round pick. If the Jets could get a 2nd round pick and something else, people thought it would be a good trade. As the market kind of thinned and teams like Washington and Chicago found their quarterbacks for next season, a lot of people started to think, they'd be lucky to get that 2nd round pick. So, I think that once Joe Douglas got that offer, maybe it doesn't look like a great offer for a potential franchise quarterback. I think he probably felt this is the best I'm going to be able to do. He had to kind of feel the way the winds were blowing, and it was not, suddenly wasn't a very big market for Sam Darnold anymore.
I'm talking to Ralph Facchiano, our NFL insider. I'm Janae Coakley. The Jets just made a trade with Carolina, sending Sam Darnold to the Panthers. Obviously, Ralph, they got that 2nd pick. Obviously, they believe Zach Wilson is the quarterback of the future. What did they see in Zach Wilson?
Yeah, they're all in on him by all indications. I think we heard Steve Young, the former 49ers quarterback last week, talk about how the Jets are even recruiting the Wilson family. So that's a good sign that that's the guy they are zeroing in on. And what they see is a very talented quarterback with a strong arm, a lot of mobility, can make some crazy throws on the run. Throws from all arm angles, all body positions. We saw it at his pro day. A play where he was running out to the left and, somehow twisted his body back and was able to throw the ball about 40, 50 yards down the field. He's not the only one that can make that throw, but it's still a heck of a throw. Not very experienced, doesn't have a ton of college starts. Could be a bit of a 1-year wonder. There are some people that worry that he really only thrived in his final year at BYU. Then again, Joe Burrow was the same way at LSU his last year, but they saw enough of that talent to believe that he could be a franchise quarterback. And just as importantly, he's now a quarterback on a rookie contract, which is much cheaper than the Jets would have had with Sam Darnold, who was heading into his option year in 2022, which would have been, $19 million.
And Ralph, you mentioned on Geico Sports Night the other night that they could have kept both of them, couldn't they? Why not keep Sam? Like you said, they go into that option year and then have Zach Wilson underneath him.
Yeah, I started to hear a lot about that around the NFL over the last week or so, that maybe they keep both of them. It was based on some speculation because there wasn't a lot of buzz about trade talks with the Jets and Sam Darnold. So, if they had kept both of them, it would have bought some time. Obviously, there would have been a quarterback controversy, but they would have been able to, play Sam Darnold, let Zach Wilson take his time and grow into the job. It could have bought them some time to find a deal later on for Sam Darnold. Maybe if a quarterback got hurt. I mentioned in that story that under Joe Douglas, so when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, they did that where they had Sam Bradford. They drafted Carson Wentz. They kept them both into training camp. Late in the season, late in the training camp, Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt in Minnesota. The Eagles are able to trade Sam Bradford to Minnesota for a pretty good haul. So, there's not a guarantee that would happen, but it could increase Darnold's value if they kept him. But I think in New York, having 2 quarterbacks, both young, both clearly fighting for their future, we people in the New York media, we can be mean sometimes. We can be feisty. No. We would have been talking about it every night on SNY. It would have been the back pages all summer long. I think that's a controversy and a problem that we just didn't want to deal with.
But Ralph, this is the 4th year that the Jets will use. They used a 3rd pick, traded it down to get, Sam. They used that 3rd pick for Sam. 4 years later now, they're taking the 2nd pick with a quarterback. Why didn't it work with Sam?
Well, I'm not sure it's Sam's fault. I'm a fan of Sam Darnold. I think there's a lot of talent there. I know his shortcomings. I saw them. We all saw them. But if you really evaluate what happened over the last 3 years, it's hard not to pin it on the fact that he had a really bad team around him, a bad offensive line all 3 years that had him basically running for his life. not good receiving core, which is why, the Jets went out and added a couple of receivers in free agency this year. And honestly, poor coaching. Adam Gase was not a good coach with the Jets, and the offense did not work at all. The worst in the league the last 2 years. And I don't think that was all Sam Darnold. I think that the coach didn't find good ways to utilize his quarterback, and maybe he couldn't with the personnel. But those circumstances, I think left us not really knowing what Sam Darnold is, what he could have been. And, I hope for his sake, he certainly looks like he's going into a better situation in Carolina. He should have some receivers, Robbie Anderson, for example, better offensive line, you think better coaching. So maybe this works out for him, because I do think there's a lot of talent and he was just in a bad spot.
I was going to say, you talk about Sam not being surrounded by a lot of talent, the O-line. I mean, I saw statistics on the fact how many different O-linemen that Sam had to work with in his 3 years. His number one receiver, who was it the 3 years he was here? I mean, like you said, you can't really pin this all on Sam, but now you're bringing a young quarterback in. What's that going to do for this kid?
Right. And that was one of the reasons that why some people thought maybe they will keep Sam Darnold. And we kept hearing that Robert Saleh liked Darnold and thought he could win with him with a better team. And what did they do? Well, they haven't really fixed the offensive line, and maybe they will in the draft, but they went out and got Corey Davis. They got Keelan Cole. They hope with obviously Tevin Coleman in the backfield, with everybody staying healthy, Denzel Mims getting in a full year. They've got better weapons around whoever their quarterback was going to be. And maybe Sam Darnold could have thrived with that. But, again, the financial clock was so close with Sam. He had one more year left, about $9 million in salary cap. They were going to have to pick up his fifth-year option. That would have been $19 million a year from now. And I think when Joe Douglas looked at this team, obviously that's enticing to get that off the books, but also his team is not 1 year away. They're not likely a playoff contender this year. So, they're still working on that offensive line. They're still working on the weapons. So Sam Darnold may not have been in a great position to thrive. And with Zach Wilson, it could be absolutely the same thing. If they don't fix that offensive line, he's going to have a rough rookie year. He's going to be on the run a lot. But he's a rookie. They have some time to do it. So they've given themselves a couple more years here to build that team that they want around their quarterback. Otherwise, Zach Wilson's not going to be in any better of a situation than Sam Darnold was.
And you're talking about they have to build this team around their quarterback. Joe Douglas made it perfectly clear. He loves building teams through the draft. Well, they're racking up draft picks right now. They have 21 over the next 2 years. What do you see them doing with that?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
you've got to hit.
Yeah, you got to get the right players. Otherwise, these draft picks are useless. They certainly have a lot of options over the next couple of years. I mean, who knows what they're going to do next year? But this year, I would think, they've filled receiver during free agency. I'd still see them adding a receiver somewhere in the first 2 days. I think, they have some defensive holes, cornerback, edge rusher. There's some really good cornerbacks. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't take one with the 23rd pick, their second first rounder. Offensive lineman, we know they need. They don't really have, outside of Mekhi Becton, who's the young lineman that they're grooming? Who's the guard that's their guard of the future, or their right tackle of the future? They need to find that. So that to me would be a big second round target. And again, we'll find out this year what holes they have. They've got a ton of picks now next year as well. And, who knows where they're going to end up picking. You presume it would be somewhat high. It's not going to win a Super Bowl. It's not going to be down in the high 20s or 30s. But you're going to see, if they need an edge rusher or whatever next year, they can help build the team then. And Joe Douglas is going to, fulfill his wish, what he said from the beginning. He wanted to build through the draft. Well, he's got an arsenal of picks to do that over the next couple of years. By the time they take the field next year, they should be a completely different looking team.
It's just, there's been so much speculation around Sam being traded. The Jets want this, the Jets want that. And now, again, out of the blue, today on a, Monday afternoon, the Jets decided to trade him Carolina. Do the Jets now, they have to go obviously in on Zach Wilson, or do you think there's something about Jalen Hurts, or is Zach Wilson their guy?
No, I think Zach Wilson is their guy. There was some talk about after Justin Fields lit it up at his pro day at Ohio State, maybe he could move up. But, pro days to me.
That's what I meant, Fields, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, we've seen them over the years. The pro days are, all the good quarterbacks light up their pro days. They're throwing on air. I'm not saying it's easy, but they're supposed to look good. They are that good. I don't think the pro day moved the needle. I think after studying the film, talking to the people around him, they just made a determination that they like Zach Wilson better. They probably like Trevor Lawrence better, but he's going number one. So no, I don't think. I guess anything can happen, but everybody who I know who knows Joe Douglas thinks Zach Wilson is locked in as the guy.
Well, it's going to be interesting because the Jets actually travel to Carolina this season. So
I hadn't even gotten that far. That's awesome.
So we'll be seeing Sam again. And like you said, he's reunited with Robbie Anderson. Obviously, Sam needed a fresh start. He wasn't surrounded by the weapons. I think Sam's a good kid. I think he would have been great for New York, but obviously there's a lot more people smarter than I am.
Yeah, I think they couldn't have gone wrong, I don't think, by keeping him, seeing if he could have thrived in a better situation, making the decision down the road. But, look, it's a bit of a crapshoot with a quarterback picked that high. I will trust the scouts and the people who make these decisions. The Jets are not alone in thinking Zach Wilson is that good. We'll see if they're right. He's still an unknown until he gets out on the field and proves it.
Well, Ralph Acciano, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. Next time I'll have my hair done, I guess, when the Jets decide to trade their quarterback, on a Monday afternoon. We'll have much more on Geico Sports Night. Always fun talking, and Zach Wilson seems to be the guy. We all know what the Jets are going to do with the number 2 pick now because they're in need of a quarterback.